The classroom fell silent when the new girl walked in. Her shoes were worn. Her backpack was small and faded. She kept her eyes low, but everyone was staring. At the back corner sat Ryan, the boy everyone feared, the school bully. No one sat near him. No one dared. Even the teachers avoided calling his name unless they had to. But the only empty seat in the room was right beside him, and that was where the teacher pointed. "Take a seat there." Gasps spread across the classroom. The girl hesitated, gripping the strap of her bag. Ryan's glare met hers, sharp, unwelcoming. He expected her to freeze like the others always did, but she walked forward, step after step, calm, quiet. She slid into the seat without a word. The whispers behind them grew louder. "Doesn't she know who he is? She'll regret this." Ryan tapped his desk, leaning closer. "You picked the wrong seat," he muttered. The girl finally looked at him. Her eyes were steady, not afraid. "I didn't pick it," she said softly, "but I'm not moving." It was the first time anyone had ever spoken back to him in that calm tone. Ryan smirked, ready to crush her courage, but something about her expression unsettled him. She wasn't challenging him. She was simply refusing to bend. Minutes ticked by. The lesson continued, but Ryan couldn't focus. No one had ever ignored his threats, and yet, here she was sitting inches away, writing quietly in her old notebook. When the bell rang, Ryan shoved his chair back. Everyone waited for the explosion, but instead, he caught sight of her shoelace, untied, loose, dragging on the floor. He crouched down, without a word. He tied it. The classroom froze. Whispers turned into stunned silence. The feared boy had bent down in front of the poor new girl, and in that moment, Ryan realized something he didn't want to admit. He had obeyed her without even knowing why. At lunch, the cafeteria buzzed with the story. The bully tied her shoe. "No way. I saw it." He actually did. Ryan walked in, his tray clattering onto the table. The usual group of boys gathered around him laughing, waiting for his anger. But his eyes kept scanning the room until he saw her. She was alone, sitting at the corner table, unwrapping a sandwich wrapped in old paper. Her food looked simple, nothing like the packed lunches or cafeteria trays. Ryan watched her take small bites as though stretching every piece to last. One boy nudged him. "Why don't you show her who's boss? She made you look weak." Ryan didn't answer. Instead, he stood up, tray in hand, and walked straight toward her. The cafeteria hushed. Every eye followed him. The poor girl looked up, chewing slowly, her gaze steady as before. Ryan set his tray down and sat across from her. His friends exchanged confused glances. No one ever sat with him by choice, yet here he was sitting with her. "You don't belong here," Ryan muttered, breaking the silence. "I know," she replied. Her voice was even, without self-pity. "But I don't have anywhere else." Ryan frowned. There was no fear, no attempt to please him, just honesty. For a moment, he wanted to laugh it off, to say something cruel, but he couldn't. Her calmness stripped away the mask he wore every day. "Why me?" he asked suddenly. "Why sit next to me when everyone else avoids it?" She looked at him, her eyes steady. "Because you're the loneliest one here." The word struck deeper than any insult he had ever heard. Lonely. She had seen through him in a single glance. The cafeteria stayed silent. Students frozen in disbelief. Ryan, the untouchable bully, was no longer untouchable, and for the first time, he didn't know if that scared him or freed him. That afternoon, he followed her to the library. She chose a corner table, opened her notebook, and began to write. Ryan sat across from her without asking permission. "What's your name?" he asked. "Elena." She didn't look up, her pen moving across the page. "What are you writing?" "A letter," she said softly. "To my mom." Something in her voice made him pause. It wasn't casual. It carried weight. He didn't push further, but the silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. After a while, Elena closed the notebook and slipped it into her bag. Ryan noticed the bag's fabric was fraying at the edges, one strap stitched back together with rough thread. He had never paid attention to details like this before, but with her, he couldn't stop noticing. When the final bell rang, Ryan usually walked home alone, but this time, he lingered. He spotted Elena leaving the school gates. Her steps light but purposeful, he followed, keeping a short distance, unsure why. Down the street, he saw her stop at a small corner shop. She placed a few coins on the counter and bought a loaf of bread, holding it carefully as if it were precious. Ryan's chest tightened. He had everything, new clothes, a big house, money in his pocket, but somehow he always felt empty, and here was Elena, with so little, moving through the world with quiet strength. The next morning, when Ryan walked into class, something strange happened. For the first time in years, no one avoided his gaze. Instead, they were watching him differently, curious, waiting. He dropped his bag onto his desk, expecting Elena to already be in her seat. But it was empty. Minutes passed. The teacher walked in, still no Elena. By lunch, whispers spread across the school. She didn't come today. Maybe she's sick. No one knows where she lives. Ryan clenched his fists. For once, he didn't care what anyone thought. He just knew one thing. He had to find her. He retraced the route he had followed yesterday, past the corner shop where she had bought bread. The shopkeeper remembered her. The little girl with the patched bag? She lives down that alley. Old building with broken steps. Ryan's heart raced as he walked into the narrow alley. The air was heavy, damp, smelling faintly of rust. At the far end stood a crumbling apartment block. Windows cracked, paint peeling from the walls. He climbed the crooked staircase, pausing at a door with a loose hinge. He knocked. For a moment, there was no sound. Then the door creaked open. Elena stood there. Her eyes widened when she saw him, as though she never expected anyone from school to find her. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "You weren't in class," Ryan said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I wanted to make sure you're okay." She blinked, caught off guard. Then she stepped aside, letting him in. The room was small, barely larger than his bedroom closet. A thin mattress lay on the floor, a single blanket folded neatly on top. There was no table, only a wooden crate holding a few books and a candle. Ryan's chest tightened. This was her life, the girl who had faced him without. Fear lived in conditions most kids at school couldn't imagine. "I couldn't come today," Elena said quietly. "My mom, she works long hours. I had to take care of things." Ryan nodded, not trusting himself to speak. She didn't owe him an explanation, but the fact that she gave one meant more than she knew. "Does anyone else know?" he asked. "No," she said, "and I'd like to keep it that way." Her tone was firm, protective of her secret. Ryan understood. If the others found out, she would be mocked, pitied, maybe even rejected. But to him, it only deepened the respect he felt. He glanced at the notebook on the crate, the same one she always carried. "Elena," he said softly. "Can I ask, what do you write in there?" She hesitated. Then, to his surprise, she handed it to him. Ryan opened the worn pages. Inside were letters, dozens of them, each one addressed to her mother, some written while she was in class, others late at night. Letters full of worries, hopes, and dreams. He read a line that struck him. "I know we don't have much, but I'll keep studying hard. One day, I'll make things better for us." Ryan closed the notebook gently. His throat tightened, but he forced the words out. "You're stronger than anyone I've ever met." Elena smiled faintly. "Strong doesn't mean I don't get tired." In that small, dim room, Ryan felt something shift inside him. The walls he had built, the anger he carried, the mask of the bully. It all cracked. For years he had pushed people away, feeding on fear, because it was easier than admitting he was lonely. But here was Elena with nothing, and yet she carried herself with more dignity than he ever had. The next morning, when Elena returned to class, she expected the same routine. The whispers, the stares, the unspoken wall that kept her apart. But when she walked in, Ryan was already at his desk. He stood as she approached. Pulling out the chair beside him, she hesitated, eyes flicking around the room. The class held its breath. Then she sat down. Ryan didn't speak. He didn't need to. Everyone saw it. The shift. The quiet alliance. The bully no longer ruled by fear. He was, standing beside someone stronger than him in ways no one else understood. Days turned into weeks. The stares slowly faded. Students who once avoided Ryan began to see him differently. Some even dared to sit nearby, but he always kept the seat next to him reserved for Elena. One afternoon while they walked home, Ryan broke the silence. "You said I'm lonely," he murmured. "You were right, but not anymore." Elena looked at him, her expression unreadable, then gave a small nod, the kind that said she understood without needing more words. They reached the corner where their paths split. Ryan paused, watching her disappear down the alley toward the old apartment building, and for the first time, he felt something he had never known before. Hope. The boy who once ruled with fear had found his freedom, and it began the moment a poor transfer girl dared to sit beside him.